Hello, and welcome to the Creative Playing Podcast Network. Join us as we get to share some great convention panels we were able to attend at CoKoCon 2019 up in Phoenix, Arizona. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
And the more we learn about the Victorian era, and something that you said earlier, it wasn't all very nice. I mean, sure, we had all the exploration, and we were discovering all these places on the map and filling them in, and you know, great strides through in industry and creating these wonderful gadgets. And isn't it wonderful? We should all go back there. It was great. And then we suddenly realized that we had, 12-year-old boys going up chimneys and dying horribly, and all sorts of inequality and horrible stuff happening. There was some truly outrageous stuff happening. So I think we're trying to address that. And as society changes, I think we're changing how we react to that. I think things like the Me Too movement and I mean, even the WorldCon, we've just renamed the John W. Campbell Award because we've realized that maybe he was mad. Yes, he did amazing things, astounding things, I should say, and contributed massively to the genre. But maybe he wasn't quite all there, and he believed things that really don't fit with now.
And even in his time were considered controversial and very crude and bigoted, yes.
Yeah, I mean, even as late as the 60s, he believed in slavery. We don't really like that. Maybe we should change the name. So they did. And I think in Steampunk, we see that with Victorian era. We look back and we keep finding new things that we don't like, and we start to change them. Let's see what the Victorian era would have been like had people changed that then. So I think, that's going to keep us busy for the next 100 years. Until we're all gone and our grandkids start to reinvent steampunk.
And there's endless potential there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and that was exactly where I was headed. Just to jump on what Hal was saying, where did we go wrong? And what can we do to fix it? And what makes steampunk so exciting to me, and I think to a number of people, is the fact that we can do that through the science and the society. There were a lot of interesting scientific discoveries that were left by the wayside that could have been pursued, and I think the same thing holds 100% to the social aspects. What if the Europeans stood up at the end of the 1800s and said, no, all men are created equal, and that's the way we're going to move forward. Imagine if the entire world got behind. And that's, so no, is steampunk dead? Absolutely not. And it is because of what these people have been saying. There is no single definition. It is up to our imagination. And that's what gives it its power, because you can't kill an idea.
Good answer. Can't kill an idea. Now, Madam has a habit of answering the question I haven't asked yet, so...
Sorry?
Every time, you are so good at that. So you sort of touched on this, but Carnival Row is coming out. If you don't know about it, look it up. It looks fantastic. It may be terrible, but we will find out soon. You mentioned, I think it was you mentioned that steampunk is contracting as a scene. I think you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. But are we just one Carnival Row or one Justin Bieber or one Hot Topic away from it being mainstream again, and suddenly everybody's going to jump on it and it's huge? Or are we going to carry on being this little subculture that's happy in who we are, and we'll do our thing, safely away from all those normal people?
That's a really good question, and I think every recreationist, for lack of a better term, group has gone through that. The Society of Creative Anachronism, as huge as it is, still draws the raised eyebrow from the mundanes.
I read a fantastic article. It's completely batshit insane, but it was a fascinating article that just came out, and apparently the SCA is all about degenerate orgies. That's all it is. There's nothing else that happens at all.
What? I didn't go to the right event.
Apparently. I have to send you this. It's great.
I'm not sure I followed that.
Always happy to throw you
But
This is a
under the
flummox.
bus.
It's a flummox. There's a flummox.
But the brilliance of steampunks, for those of us that truly enjoy the aesthetic, I wear this to work. I work for the Bank of America. They're a little conservative. My boss thinks I look fantastic.
Because you do.
It's true.
And it's
Truth is truth.
and it's amazing how much people don't bat an eye. Because I know you go to work kilted.
Yes, I work for Wells Fargo, so I work for a bank too, and I go to work like this in a kilt and all of that. Though mostly I work from home, so I don't have quite the same effect. Have you converted people? Are there other people in the bank now with handlebar massages and kilts? And
There's one more handlebar,
Excellent.
and I was asked where I got this particular kilt because it's denim. And I had to explain.
you had to explain. Come
Here.
to the panel of CoKoCon on
Yes.
Sunday, is it?
No, it's
Today?
next one.
Oh, the next one. Yeah,
yes.
stick around to learn how to do the denim kilts.
And
Yes.
so that's been the most fun for me. Like, what do you call this? And I was like, my closet.
Yes.
Good answer.
So and I think that's the strength.
So you're going to convert people one at a time.
One at a time.
You don't see this being
One at-
just something like a carnival row
No,
happening, and
no,
suddenly everybody's.
I would
selecting
love
what
to see
is-
the Carnival Row explosion, but I in my own life I've seen the one pebble. If I only get one or two, that's fine.
Well, I think that's the difference between a popularity explosion and an identity explosion. There are those that would consider themselves, I am
that's
a
good.
steampunk, or this is my lifestyle, or this is something that I do. I am an author, and I work for a bank, and I'm a steampunk, right? And you're always going to have fans that are like, I love Carnival Row, and so now I'm interested. Now I'm going to go to these events. Now I'm going to dress in this costume. I'm going to have these things, but might not adopt the identity of the aesthetic. And then that will fade, but there will be others who, through this introduction, will come and stay.
Congratulations on answering my next question before Madame had a chance. Beth, you've probably introduced steampunk to more people than anybody else on this panel, I'm sure, by a factor of a heck of a lot. Have you converted people?
I have had people who have discovered steampunk or discovered they like steampunk because of my books, especially Clockwork Dagger. Because I've seen it described as, and kind of adopted, people have described it as Agatha Christie meets Final Fantasy.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
And that seems like a pretty good hook line, so I've adopted that for myself. And I think there's definitely potential for it to go mainstream. I know one thing that is often mourned within the steampunk community is that in America there has yet to be a really good steampunk movie.
Yes.
Hollywood
Oh, yes.
likes to have a little dalliance with the imagery every so often, but the movies don't quite come together. And you can, cite things like, Wild Wild, West, go back to like the old original
The
shows,
show,
not the
yes.
Will Smith movie. That doesn't exist. That's in their timeline.
Yeah.
But we don't have a really shining example where we can say this is a beautiful steampunk movie. There's some anime that do it very well,
Yes.
but they're not mainstream.
Yeah.
So I think if something like that hit, and if that caused a fashion ripple effect, I think we would see steampunk go more into that. And I think as a man, it's probably easier for you to wear that at work. A woman would have a much harder time and would stand out far more.
I do agree that a woman would have a lot harder time wearing a handlebar moustache.
You know, there are a number of women who wish they could, and it would save them a lot of worry and hassle.
It would. I will add, for anybody that was at my Apocalypse Later Roadshow here last night, I screened a film called The Ningyo, which is an absolutely amazing film. I recommend you find it online and watch it. It's genius. And it's a sort of a steampunk film. It goes back to the Victorian era. They're I'd say cryptozoologists, but they're not. They're just zoologists. They're trying to find these strange creatures that are mythical, and they believe they're real, and they find them. And it's very steampunk in its aesthetic, and it's a half-hour short. It looks just incredible. Check it out. But the reason I mention it is Hollywood has optioned it as a not option. They've signed the contract to make it. It's gone beyond option to make it into a feature.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's an odd decision. I love the film. It's wonderful, but it's
How long is it in its current form?
Current form, 30 minutes.
Okay.
It was done as part one of a web series, but now it's going to be a feature. And the thing is, it's partly in Japanese, because the Ningyo is a mythical Japanese mermaid. You eat the flesh, it makes you immortal, but it's cursed. You know, that sort of story. It's not what Hollywood normally does. It's really not what Hollywood normally does. So I'm really interested to see what they do with it. But if it comes out right, and the guy that started it all is the guy that's going to write the film, maybe that could make the difference.
Okay.
So, fingers crossed on that, and check out the Ningyo.
Which is interesting, because last night on the Twisted Tropes, we were talking about how mermaids were going to be having a resurgence coming up, so that actually ties into that.
Yeah, generally mermaids should have a resurgence without being eaten. I should point that out, just in case anybody was wondering.
But I have seen that done before. I forget her name. I think it's Takahashi, the woman who did Ranma Half.
Yeah,
anime.
Takahashi.
Yeah, and the manga. She also had a series that drew on that.
Yeah,
Mermaid Scar,
Forest.
Mermaid Forest. I have a couple of the old manga, and it's very good. Definitely goes
the
in.
anime.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm glad that that's being explored more, because it's a really good angle.
Well, that is good news.
So I always do hope that there will be something really keen and interesting produced by Hollywood or some big, producer of media. And I have been sad about the contraction, particularly of the literature, because, as you were saying, I didn't know that. I don't work in publishing. I just consume all the books. But I've run a steampunk book club for 7 or 8 years now, and it is every year harder to put together a reading list.
And right now, I think going into next year, you will have an even harder time finding new releases.
Oh yes, it took me 6 months to put the reading list together for this year. And
the real irony is that steampunk is a literary genre. While we look at it rather than read it, we look at look at everybody here. It's a visual thing, but it started as literature.
Yep.
So these days I make my net just very wide when I'm pulling, and next year's theme for book club is steampunk adjacent, because already looking, it's very challenging to put together the reads.
And on this next week, we're talking on Skype, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
because we're reading Beth's book. We've read you a couple of times, and it's been a joy. We increasingly go back to authors that we love, who have series. In the first few years, we never repeated because there was so much to pull from. Now, most of the steampunk reads are definitely indie publishers or independent.
that doesn't surprise me.
So it's very tricksy. But I've heard good things about Carnival Row. I've heard the first 2 episodes a little slow, and it picks up. And my approach then is that, yes, maybe we'll get some new people, but the most important thing is to be open to welcoming them. Mm-hmm. So there's a thing that happens in some communities where they get a little bit, insular and ossified, and they're like, new people? No! Oh, gatekeeping.
Yes,
the worst.
That's one I desperately wanted to attend.
Yeah, so I run a social group in Tucson, the Tucson Steampunk Society, with a board of people, which I've been doing that for, I think, 9 years now. And we always try and keep an open space. new membership has gone down in the last couple of years. I see the contraction at many levels, but I never want to be that person who's like, well, let's just close ranks and not worry about welcoming new people. I would like that welcome to always be there.
Well, and you look at that welcoming, and, Christin and I started 12, 13 years ago in Steampunk. I mean, that was our first introduction as Wild West Con 1, and really my looking at Steampunk was, Will Smith and, Wild Wild West. Like, I mean, that's pretty much what I had to go off of.
Well, that's not really steampunk, or that's just terrible steampunk. You can't be included because you like that.
And some people actually feel that way. Yeah,
and that's sad.
And then we quickly, jumped on the correct trains and met other people and expounded our bounds and came in. And so yes, definitely I have that open door, and we always put I teach for a living, and so I have lots of posters of the different cons coming up and stuff, and kids are always like, what's this? Well, it's steampunk. Oh, my sister reads those books. Really? You should let her know that she should come talk to me. She doesn't believe you. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
But being that welcoming person in, very much so was what we experienced on our first con of, yes, come and do this. That's when the Bros Brothers started off.
Oh.
That's when, Red Fork Emperor was there and was like, hey, let me show you around. Let me introduce you to people. Let me, we were in jeans and t-shirt walking around with name tags on and like, ooh, what is this? It was phenomenal. And to be able to help that with, everybody else that's new coming into it, I think that's where the joy in it is, really.
Yeah, and just to add, with the raising voices, I think one of the tragedies about the timing of this decline in steampunk literature is that it was, through the first years, and the major names still are, very dominated by white-skinned people. And it was at a point just in like the past 2 years where you were starting to get other voices from around the world, bringing like Nisty Shaw with Everfair out of Africa, and you were getting all kinds of Asian steampunk. There's a fantastic anthology of Asian steampunk called The Sea Is Ours. You have all of these really neat voices coming in right at the time when steampunk is being declared dead.
Yes.
And isn't that a tragedy?
Is that a coincidence? Is there a political part of that as well?
I think leading into it, there was definitely a political part where people weren't willing to take a risk on, minority or more of an ethnic approach until the very end, sadly. Which is very sad. It's just not, and it's not fair to those authors at all. And then it makes you think how many other authors didn't get a chance to be seen at all in the early years because of that. So I think still seek out those books and, share those voices, because it's not just about us speaking up. It's about us trying to lift up other people, too. And because look at us. We're definitely a certain demographic up here.
We are.
This leads to the question of boundaries, and if we define steampunk in a certain way, and of course we've completely already refuted the purists who say, well, Beth, clearly all your books are obviously about old aristocratic white gentlemen in London in the Victorian era between 1837 and 1901. Have you ever thought of exploring different characters? Different ethnicities, different genders. Have you thought of going there at all? And expanding those boundaries of steampunk?
Would you like a fan with that shade?
That was one of the questions.
I've never had anyone try and certainly not to my face say that I have.
No, you completely haven't. But you've
pushed
the boundaries.
And I did have people say that the day my Clockwork Dagger came out, my first book, it had a review in Entertainment Weekly. Mm-hmm. And a comment, there were very few comments on it. Of course, debut book, I'm going to actually read the comments. One of the comments, steampunk is dead. Because Entertainment Weekly, is covering it.
Right. Well, where I'm going with this is the thinking is that because you completely didn't go to that
Yeah.
demographic
Oh, yeah.
at all.
London's not even, there
Right.
at all. Or
You're in a
aristocratic
fantasy
or
world
anything.
with magic and all this stuff. So you completely didn't go there. But does that mean that people are going to look at it and say, well, that isn't steampunk? Because this is what steampunk is. You're doing something else. You push those boundaries.
Yeah.
Are we expanding steampunk?
Well, I think there would be some bigotry there. I mean, my second series, beginning with Breath of Earth, has Ingrid on the cover, and she is a brown-skinned woman. And I would bet you that there were probably people who did not pick it up because it was a brown-skinned woman on the cover. I will guarantee you that I probably lost some sales because of that. And you know what? I don't miss those people because I don't want that.
I'm sure you get lots of feedback from fans. How many people did pick it up because it was a brown-skinned woman? And
A lot.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people. Well, and
this stuff exists. This is wonderful.
And the covers were gorgeous, which helped a lot because Jean Malika did the covers and did the photography and the model shots. I mean, it's just everything. I mean, so that I think a beautiful cover helps, but you're never going to please all the people, and I don't want to please some people, to be perfectly honest.
No, like the poor boys who were so upset with Fury Road.
Oh,
they've taken over our movie series.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that, and now every single remake and all that, you hear that same thing again. They're ruining it. Yeah,
you've ruined my childhood.
That's the popular refrain.
So where's next? I mean, Beth's taking steampunk in all these different directions, which is wonderful. Read her books; they're amazing.
I was just going to say, if you have not read them, they are so good. And the Steampunk Book Club in Tucson all agrees they are steampunk.
Yes,
in a big way.
And Duncan has them in the dealer room.
They're so good.
The one thing I've never been able to understand is that the hard line that it's like, oh, that's not steampunk, that's dieselpunk, or that's not steampunk, it's soakpunk, and why do these divisions exist? It does baffle me, and I'm not always able to ask that question.
Can I jump in?
Please.
I have an opinion that is very strong.
You?
I know. Shocking. So I really detest that habit of people. Anytime someone does something inventive in steampunk and pushes the boundary, someone is always like, "Oh, well, that's not steampunk. It's X." I'm like, "No, darling, it's still steampunk. Like, it's steampunk that's not in London or El Paso." And I like both of those places, but
and there are people who think that for it to be real steampunk, it must be in England.
That's true.
Real
True.
steampunk.
Yeah.
Real, yes, authentic. Steampunk.
Fresh off the truck from the airship to
Lorry.
Yeah, well,
Lorry.
with Americans. The Americans, what do they
Straight off
know?
the lift.
Truck. But yeah, it's fresh off the airship to the port. It has to be brought in, free range, grass fed steampunk. Very authentic.
I like how some writers, not you, some writers have decided that because steampunk has to be Victorian, but they want to do it in a different time, they'll just find a way to keep Queen Victoria alive. Right? So now she's 374, she's in a vat, she can't move, but it means that it's steampunk.
I actually encountered a theme for a while when I was reading steampunk books of robotic Queen Victorias. It's like, this is a thing.
It's its own genre.
Do you remember that one where she was like also sort of a lizard person? Like they'd reanimated her and made her a lizard?
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Oh, my.
Yes. Yeah, I read that one.
Yeah.
We are not amused.
It was like lizard aliens from the moon.
Yes.
Yes.
Which one's this? I gotta read this.
It was in a set that was like 3 novellas.
To look up.
Oh my gosh, I can see the cover.
Yeah.
Was it that
It
gent?
was a smaller press.
It was. And was it the gent with the Italian last name? Oh my gosh. I have it on my
I think
shelf.
I need to create a reading list later.
I do have a reading list
Oh,
of
she has one.
Goodreads of everything we've read for book club. So there's that.
That one was a little weird for my personal taste.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
I did not take it to book club.
Here's my
But
hope.
it's memorable.
It is. Clearly.
That's a word.
Long before I discovered steampunk, I discovered heavy metal. as I'm sure you are very surprised. Back in the 80s, you had all these different factions, if you can call them that. You could be black metal, or you could be death metal, or you could be thrash metal, and they grew. Then each of them split. So you could be, slamming brutal death metal, or you could be melodic death metal, and it just kept on going and kept on going. And a lot of these kept separate. So if you were into black metal, you couldn't be into death metal because that's just wrong, and vice versa. And it's all fixed. In 2019, nobody cares anymore, and people are taking bits of this and bits of that one that I haven't even heard of, and putting them all together and creating something new. And it's a really vibrant scene right now. And I'm wondering if we can get there with steampunk. So we can get the guys, the people bringing in magic, which is, some people would see as, steampunk's dead. We've now got magic,
Yep. Has to be science fiction and only science fiction.
Right. And
clearly they haven't read Martha Wells' Death of a Necromancer then.
But you've got all these different factions that you can't belong to more than one, right? You've got to be in one only. And I think I'm hoping that we can see that merging, so we can have
I'm seeing
bits
that.
from everything.
Absolutely,
I
that's
certainly
right.
am seeing that, especially in the local Western area where we are accepting the magic and we're accepting the science and we're accepting. I think we're starting to move beyond just the definition about struggling with this is Rococo punk and this is silk punk and this is steampunk and this is diesel punk. I think those words are important, and that maybe can inform your specific interest in the scene. But I certainly think we are seeing that all being encompassed under the steam.
The way to really, that it's really there is if you look at, steampunk music. Mm-hmm. There isn't just one genre of steampunk music, despite what Robert might say. Right. But the music of it is all over the place. One of my favorite bands to have come out was Dry River Yacht Club.
They were great.
That was a phenomenal concert that they put on for us. But, that's more diesel punk. More of the swing style music. But we had them in the steampunk, hey, it's there. There's that wide genre, and so you're going to find all of those punks in one place. Why not embrace it?
And we have a certain advantage here in Arizona as Weird West punks. Because if you don't travel to a lot of conventions, there's a very strange East Coast versus West Coast thing. It's like, we're steampunks, not rappers, but apparently it matters not. And the line in the sand is drawn, and we're the only ones that get to go to both coasts. Like, they're from Arizona, they can do that.
Wow.
They're like,
He's not
steampunk
wrong.
six gun? No, that's good. You're from Arizona, it's fine.
Yeah, I've seen that. We've all seen this. I think it's very, very obvious when you start moving outside Arizona. It's very obvious. The East Coast, to throw out an unfair generalization, see themselves, I think, as gatekeepers, or a certain group of the East Coast people see themselves as gatekeepers. So they're defining the genre, and it's what they say it is.
Oh, how nice for them.
Oh yeah, it's great. And out here, it's
bless your heart.
Jared is Wild West steampunk, right? And that's fine. And here it makes sense because the Wild West was real here.
Yeah.
It wasn't just stories in a penny dread. It was something that happened, and it wasn't that long ago. And the ramifications are still here. We still have the desert. We still have all this iconography, and we can do this. And you do, and many others do. And if you haven't been to Wild Wild West Con, many of us work, it's in a Wild West town.
Please
Tucson
come.
Studios. It's the best location for an event ever because it's total immersion. Everywhere you look is a photo op.
Yeah.
But
You will bring dirt home.
oh yes,
Even here.
but we
Wear
take this
sensible
attitude. I think.
shoes.
The Wild West attitude was, I don't care what you say I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I want to do, and if you disagree with me, I might shoot you. But I
And
might
what
walk
is-
away.
You're
I
not
might
allowed
do
to
something.
What is
House,
more
it'll do something.
steampunk than a brass Gatling gun?
Right.
There isn't, and we had them. Those are ours.
So we take this, I think, elsewhere, and I know, Madam, you've traveled to many steampunk conventions. How have you done with taking this Wild West mentality TeslaCon and Steampunk's World Fair or wherever your travels have taken you?
It helps to pretend to be English. You can go everywhere.
Oh, I don't have to pretend.
All right, so see, you've already got it. Just go and be English. No, I've seen that divide too, and I know what you mean about a certain segment of the population on the East Coast has sort of dubbed themselves the arbiters of what is or isn't steampunk. I see less of them though, and they seem to be very disenchanted, unhappy, one might say even. I have suspicions as to why. I think it's an unhappy position to be in where you're cutting people out of the fun, get more and more isolated.
And when there's people laughing at you for doing it.
Yes,
and
ignoring
you
them,
just take their
completely
power.
ignoring them.
Right, that part too. So I do find a distinct difference between the West Coast approach and the East Coast approach, and I find a difference between the Canadians and the New Zealanders. I haven't gotten to go, but I met them and they're lovely. They bring sort of the Wild West spirits in their own vein, but they're like, oh, we do what we want and it's fun. We're here for fun. I'm like,
They
great.
do keep Queen Victoria alive, though.
Well, that's true.
I'm excited about that.
And also sheep. They love their sheep, and I'm keen on
Hey now.
sheep. So we're
Not
all
like the Welsh.
But I mean, just sheep friends. Sometimes you need to go speak to the sheep. Anyway, it's off topic. So yes, part
Chop.
of it is just
That's not steampunk.
Bravo.
Nicely done.
Well played, Miss Cato.
So yes, I was saying some things, and they were good. Be English. You can go everywhere.
I've completely lost track of where we are. What line are we on? I'm
The
not
East
sure
Coast,
what
West Coast.
East Coast, West Coast, yes.
Rivalry. West Coast, all right.
Oh, yeah, yes. It's one of the things that should always be remembered is steampunk is a punked genre. And punked means you take something, you mess around with it. So it's really hard for me to imagine that you can keep those boundaries up, because the whole punked mentality is you find the boundaries and you destroy them. So
But people are very good at missing the point.
they are very good at missing the point.
There was a point?
There was a point. Yes, and how did Drax say it? I never miss the point. I would reach up and catch it before it flies over my head. And yes, people miss the point all the time. It's crazy, especially on the East Coast.
Is this going online too?
I love how we're being isolationist here and saying, well, we've got it right, they've got it wrong by saying that they've got it right.
But we accept everybody.
We do.
But we're not missing the point.
But it's true that Arizona does really welcome everyone.
We're self-aware that we're missing.
And Wild West Con is an international draw, so once a year at Old Tucson, people come from everywhere. We've had guests from New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Italy, England, Canada, Scotland, Japan. Have we had Russians? I don't know. Russia seems to still have a very vibrant steampunk community, but I don't read or speak Russian. The Italian community is going strong. There's a group in Mexico. It'd be great to reach out to them because they're vibrant too. So, steampunk is alive and well socially, culturally, in some pockets of the globe. And they come here for Wild Wild West Con. So we have got that part right.
I don't know if the Russians have been here, but I know the lady who directed Corset, which is the most sumptuous costumes you've ever seen in a steampunk film, Russian short film. She came to San Diego, so she's definitely been over here. But I'm not sure she's ever got to Arizona. It would be great to have her here, especially when she gets the next one done.
We should bring her.
We should. We should talk to the management.
We should.
Somebody should send an entertainment email.
We should do that, Hal. We should send an email.
We shall make that happen.
Even though they're very distant and never want to talk to us.
Entertainment@steampunkaz.com.
Okay, let's try and get this back on track. So, if we're happy to expand all these boundaries, are we going away from simplicity? Do we miss the simple?
Yes, that's the Victorian. We want the beautiful little details, and we want these little fun things that we can just dig into and burrow and have beautiful, just the aesthetic, the things that look at. And so no, steampunk is never going to be a simple thing because there's not a clear-cut definition. And what would be the point? We want to have everything. We want to bring that in, and we want to have things that we can look at and explore. I don't think we're ever going to have a simple definition of steampunk, and that would be sad if we were to get there.
A chemise is a dress and looks perfectly nice belted with nothing more than a simple vest. And then you have Madame Askew. It's a dress. There's nothing simple about it.
Somewhere like about 5 layers deep.
If we wanted it simple, we wouldn't be steampunks.
Right.
No, I like that, actually. It makes me think that, a very modernist standpoint is form follows function. Steampunk is definitely very 19th century in that we threw that out. No, function follows form. Like, I'll make a thing and then I'll tell you what it does. But it'll be
Hopefully
really
I remember
cool.
the pocket.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What's next? Because we're running out of time.
Oh.
This battle always goes so fast.
What's next for steampunk, and what's next for you?
Well, so I think because I focus so heavily on tea and time travel, the party for me is never ending, and I branch out to new things. So for me, I focus a lot on teaching, and I'm still traveling, which I love, but definitely my participation is changing a bit in that I'm teaching more and doing fewer commissions, and I really love the teaching. I find it empowering. And I think what's next for steampunk is that maybe the last group of organisers are just burned out and we need some fresh people to reinvigorate what's going on and have a ripple effect. Jared? Fresh face.
I did shave this morning.
No pressure.
The next steps for me is, to nail down our entertainers for Wild Wild West Con. To bring you a great show for Wild Wild West Con. Please come. Please, it'll be phenomenal. We have lots of great things planned.
And we've told you where it is. We haven't told you when it is. When is it,
So
Jared?
it's the first full. Let me make sure I get it correctly.
March.
It's in March. It's
on your birthday.
It is. No, it's the 5th through the 8th is when it will be. And that's all that I can tell you about right now.
Early days.
Yeah, so it's the 5th through the 8th. We will be having a big thing on Thursday. Normally it's just like hey, come to your hotel room, come and do these things. We want it to be grandeur, so we will be involved on Thursday as well, Thursday evening through Sunday. And then, we learned our 4th year to stay till Monday, and then that's when you pack up and go, and not, pack everything in your car on Sunday. So, get your hotel, Wednesday through Monday if you can. Because it is that big, it is that immersive. So in doing that, and between, child and job and everything else in life, it's wanting to know what you want to see, wanting to know what's new and different. We're looking forward to doing, more parties and more events as we become more, immersed into the community.
We're planning on going to New Zealand in 2020, and so 2021, and so looking forward and seeing how can we share the Arizona side of things to the other places that we go. Yeah. And again, the theme this year is the magic and mystery, and so how can I take the other genres that I already, fantasy and literary and movies and all things, how can I take the other magical side of things that I like, and how do I slap a corset and some gears on it and make it really sing as steampunk?
Very much so.
So Beth, as somebody who is clearly magic and mystery and steampunk and could totally be in your entertainment list for Wild Wild West Con, what's next for you?
Well, not steampunk books, unfortunately, because of the market as it is. But I'm still writing, still trying to have stuff go out there, and I'm very active on social media, on my website, everything's current on there, so you can still follow my other short stories and poetry. And then I would just say, keep reading and encouraging the steampunk authors that are out there. I know Gail Carriger is still putting out lots of, really good books right now, but look at other authors too and help them out, and ask your local libraries to carry these authors too and help them out. And steampunk, traditional publishing, everything it's like fashion or anything else. It'll come back around, give it a couple years, give it the right big book, and all of a sudden everyone's going to want it again. That's all it'll take. It's just patience. But in the meantime, there are lots of good books out there to love.
How about you? What's next for you?
Really, for me, it's bridge building. As I said, it's something of a personal affront that someone could say that's not steampunk, and it is the people that are coming out. It is folks like Professor Sparks. Look at this, and bringing in a little more of the visceral science, because the very idea of that delineation, especially here in Arizona, as I said, it's like that's diesel punk. That's a train.
Gee, when were trains invented?
Right? So, and it was Professor Elemental a few years ago when he was like, could you even think of a better location than Old Tucson Studios?
Oh yes.
And because it is a truly immersive environment and a great time. I have never had anything less than a stellar time. So if you have not gone, please do. And we welcome you with open arms, whether you've been doing this for a decade or whether this is your very first convention. One of the greatest things about the steampunk community, which everyone on this panel represents, is we will answer all of your questions. And if we can't, we'll find Madame Askew.
Perfect lead in, because we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, so we can attempt to answer all your questions in those 4 or 5 minutes. Anybody got any questions in the audience?
I'd like to say something about the Wild West.
Sure.
If you ever want to just you're feeling isolated, just compliment anybody on anything they're wearing. And start a conversation.
You have a conversation, yes.
It'll go for 3 hours.
It's easy. It's a blast.
It's very true.
How big is Wild West Con? Do you have a...
Last year we had 5,000 attendees over the course of the weekend.
And I think that put us over the top, didn't it, officially?
Yes, that did put us at the top for the U.S.
It doesn't feel crowded. It doesn't feel like a mob scene.
Yeah, it's not one room. It's an entire Wild West town, so it's very spread out.
Well,
you will need to move a lot. But yeah, it never feels crowded.
Yeah,
Comfy
because
suits,
it's
yes.
Old Tucson Studios, we still have their guests attending as well. So that does count their numbers of people that did come in. But those members also buy passes to come to the con as well. So you'll still see people in plain clothes walking around with badges on, experiencing it. And we have many people who come and just say, I just come and enjoy all your costumes, and that's fun for me. And it's like, yeah, that's fine.
I love the looks on the faces of Grandma and Grandpa from the UP.
Yeah.
Going, what's happening here?
Yep. That's not John Wayne. Any other questions? We have no other questions, so we do.
Question is kind of about Hollywood or whatever. It's like I went to conventions back in the late 70s, early 80s, and then life intruded, and I wasn't able to go for a while. And
Welcome back.
Thank you. A friend of mine worked with books and authors at CoKoCon, and so he got me back into the con scene. And then I found this one. It's like, okay, cool. Let's go back to that. But my introduction to steampunk was an episode of Castle.
Oh, that was
yes.
We all know the episode.
That was a good episode.
And I'm going, what is this? I love this. What is this? This is so cool. And then I found out that it was not just not just part of a show. It was a real world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you definitely need to come to Wild Wild WestCon because the arm that Castle wears is made by Thomas Wilford. He's at Wild Wild WestCon pretty much every year, and usually has the arm with him. He still has it, right?
Yes, he did.
And that episode made me think of Spider Robinson's Callahan's Crosstime Saloon. Where is that club?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Let's just make it. We should just make it. That's what we do.
You got a question, Connie?
Yes, I'm interested in the teapot
Racing?
and other clever new ideas adjacent and part of the steampunk community. There must be new wonderful things around that are happening, that are interactive, that are fun.
Hobby horse dressage.
Oh, yes.
That would be me.
Hobby horse dressage is the next big thing. Yes.
Wow, this is new to me.
It's big in Scandinavia. We're going to get it here.
Well, and compliment dueling, I think, would definitely
Compliment
qualify.
dueling,
That
yeah.
was a great.
That's right. We have such a good time with that. And we do generally host at least one tourney at Wild Wild WestCon and other places where we can. I think we're doing it at TestaCon this year as well.
My question is there a resource or place where we can find more information about these interactive types of contests and fun and games in the U.S.? I mean, is there...
There is not, unfortunately, but there is a publication. What's it called? Steampunk Explorer, is it?
I think that's the one, yeah.
Steampunk Explorer is online, and it's as close as you're going to get to a general all things steampunk newsletter.
Also, the Airship Ambassador it sometimes has some good updates about things happening.
He has lots of good information.
He's lovely.
Yeah, with him, yes, he does, but a lot of his links, he's very ambitious with what he lists. And the bigger your scope, the more those links go out of date. So you'll find a lot of things won't work anymore, but that's not his fault.
Right.
The internet changes. Yeah.
Internet changes are one. But both of those would be good places to start. And when I actually build my Count Chaos website, at some point I will absolutely have some of that stuff for you. But it's not there yet, so sorry.
Wonderful. Let us know what we can do to help you.
Absolutely would. I have a hand. Yes.
You know, teapot racing. There is going to be teapot racing at World Tucson?
Yes. Every year. Unless
Splendid teapot racing.
Unless, the Grand Arbiter and I are not on the entertainment list. We can neither confirm nor deny.
Shame. We know who to accost if that doesn't happen.
We have, sorry. I'm teasing my friend here. We do tea dueling and teapot racing and compliment dueling at Wild Wild WestCon. We do one teapot racing tourney. I would not say I'm a resource for all of the steampunk games in the world, and I don't like to toot my own horn too much, but I do generally keep up what's happening. So it's like the Harvey Horse Dressage. I've been watching that for about 2 years and trying to figure out how and when we can bring it. Because, of course, the Arbiter and I want to bring it, and I now have a small stable of hobby horses at home, which is absolutely true. So I want people to make riding habits into hobby horse dressage in the worst way.
I'm going to have to cut it off because I know we are out of time.
Sorry.
Thank you all for coming, and come to all these other things and follow all of these wonderful people and enjoy the rest of your convention.
Thank you. That was a good talk.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.